Good morning and happy Tuesday, everybody. This is your host of the UGA Sports.com Quick Take. I'm Jason Butt. I am here to talk about something that I think a lot of you are inquiring and wondering about, and that is, will the UGA rushing offense, improve, especially from what we've seen over the first 5 games of the season? I think the Missouri game in particular brought out the highest level of worry, concern, inquisitiveness. I don't know if that's a word, but I think there's a lot of people who are suddenly wondering if the Georgia rushing attack can become the consistent force that it needs to be to help complement the overall offense in this Todd Monken scheme. Now, we all know, I think 5 games in, this is not the type of rushing attack that we became used to. 2017, you had Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. 2018, you had DeAndre Swift running the show. And then so on 19, 20, 21, Zamir White, James Cook, those guys were involved. That's not the offense that's not what's going to be the bread and butter anymore. You know, this offense, this year in particular, Todd Monken's offense is going through the quarterback, much like most relevant offenses in 2022 in this day and age. It's centered on the quarterback. It's about explosive plays. It's about getting the ball to playmakers in space, whether that is the quick game, whether that's them going vertical. Georgia has shown that it's got the guys to do that. It's got 2 awesome tight ends. It's got some speedsters at receiver. Ladd McConkey, he's had coming off a game and a half where he really probably wishes he could have those back and have some of those drops back. You have when healthy, A.D. Mitchell's their best receiver, and so you're there. And then Kenny McIntosh. We go to talk about the running backs. Kenny McIntosh has been excellent as a receiver out of the backfield, for that matter. So you have all these pieces in place to really help spread the field, go wide, then go vertical. And then you've got the run game. And I think ideally the fourth quarter is where Georgia's run game should be shining. And to a degree it did against Missouri. So, but you would like for it to help complement and help pace this offense and offer better balance than it has so far. I think some of the plays you saw against Kent State, you're just kind of like, okay, that's interesting. And then they still put up the numbers and you're just like, okay, so it's not all that bad. But the Missouri game, to me, now I'm going to throw something out at you. So Missouri, they finished this game with it was 169 rushing yards on 36 carries. So that's an average of 4.7. They had 2 touchdowns, both in the fourth quarter. Now those rushing numbers would suggest a decent performance. It's, close game. They put up some rushing yards, etc. That's great. Good balance. Not really the case. Through 3 quarters, Georgia had 66 rushing yards. So you're telling me in the fourth quarter, that's when Georgia was able to finally get it going, and they had 103 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns as Missouri's defense was wearing down. That's good and would be better against, say, an Alabama, say against Ohio State, Clemson. Clemson's got a great defense this year again. I think if you were to give me that narrative against one of those teams, I'd be saying, okay, great. They did what they could. They got their yards. It was tough. And then boom, fourth quarter, they were able to wear them down and ice the game away, which Georgia had to rally. And if they could have controlled the ball a little more, if they could have done better in the run game, I think perhaps this game would not have been a 10-point deficit. As long as it was, to where Georgia did have to rally and come up with 2 touchdowns. And instead of trading field goals with Missouri, it took them all the way till the fourth quarter to finally get those touchdowns to take the win and stay unbeaten. They were really close. They were really close to suffering their first loss of the 2022 season, which would have been really tough to overcome, in my opinion, because you still have some tough games where you can't afford a loss, because you can't afford a loss against Florida and then run the table. You can afford a loss still, say, against Tennessee and make the SEC championship, and then still get to where you want to go, the ultimate goal, which is the playoffs and the national championship. So what does this run game do? I think for starters, Auburn will be a good sign of being able to take what they learned from Missouri, which was the first half trying the preferred method of going hat on hat, getting a push, moving the offensive line back, the defensive line back. I'm sorry, moving them back and turning out running yards in that manner. That's not working for this team right now. It did not work against a superior defensive front in Missouri, which we knew Missouri's defensive line was good, but the fact that the first half they manhandled Georgia the way they did and won, I mean, just straight up won. I mean, there's no debate. There's no excuses. Missouri's defensive line, when it came to just being just a one-on-one from athleticism, man-on-man, all that, they were the better unit. The defensive line was better. So Georgia adjusted. They went with a gap scheme in the second half. They were able to finally get some yards, get some positive plays in the run game. And then you saw in the fourth quarter that Georgia finally broke some plays and was able to come away, with the victory as a result. That's not going to fly. Losing that way in the first half, that's not going to fly against some of these teams. I just think of Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, for that matter. I don't think they cannot afford they can't afford to have a run game offer no balance, because if that's the case, then the edge guys are just going to tee off on Stetson Bennett. They're not going to have to respect the run game. And then Stetson Bennett's going to be in a whole lot of trouble, like he was in the first half when he was only 10 of 24 passing, because he had to keep getting rid of the ball so quickly, which, quite frankly, for going 10 of 24 in the first half, that is a remarkable line, in the sense of he was able to just live for another day and not take a terrible sack. He did have the one fumble on the bad exchange where it looked like he was trying to pull the ball back. But, in terms of taking a sack, fumbling, costly turnover, when it came to that, he was able to be fine. And so, but if Georgia has a rushing attack that can help take that pressure off him, that would be so much better. And I'm sure Stetson Bennett would love that. But right now, the offensive line isn't there. They're not getting a push. 66 yards through 3 quarters in the run game. That's unacceptable for what is the number 2 team in the country. Now, we're seeing this all over college football. So much like yesterday, we can't expect Georgia to be the team like last year. We can't expect them to look like some of those old Alabama teams that just come out. It doesn't even look like they have to try that hard, and then they go win by 45, call it a day, and move on. And you're already talking. We were, I think, after Oregon, after South Carolina, I think a lot of us were talking, okay, well, all right, so they got this win, they got this one, this win, they'll go forward. This will be a tough game. That's not the case anymore. Like I said yesterday, you have to reevaluate your expectations and go week by week. Auburn is perhaps a good get-right game for the rushing attack. Auburn, when they got the doors blown off them by Penn State, the Nittany Lions ran for 39 carries, 245 yards, 5 touchdowns. Nicholas Singleton in particular, 10 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was all over the field in that game. The freshman just running all over Auburn. Katron Allen, 9 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then this past Saturday, LSU, not spectacular, 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. It looks good until you realize it was 49 carries, an average of 3.8 yards per carry. So not that great. Auburn did a decent job. Auburn did a good job in holding Missouri when they played. And honestly, Missouri should have won that game if their running back didn't drop the ball. I believe it was, I can't remember which one it was, whether it was Pete or I think it was Nathaniel Pete who reached over the end zone and could not hold on to the ball. And that's how they lost it. Auburn should be sitting here at 2-3 right now, but it is what it is. So you look at Auburn, those 2 games stand out. They are, when it comes to rush defense, they are in the SEC. They are 9th, 138.2 yards per game on the ground. When it comes to average yards per carry allowed, Auburn is 7th at 3.7. So teams are trying to run in volume on them. So 3.7 is not a bad number in terms of yards allowed. But then, of course, they are being accumulated 138.2. I think the Penn State game had a lot to do with that, through 5 games. So Auburn's vulnerable against the run, but Georgia hasn't really shown the tendency to consistently put it together. I think Auburn is a great game to really challenge this offensive line in particular, and the running backs too. I think it's more the offensive line. When you watch that Missouri game, you're just kind of baffled that in the first half they could not get any movement up front. So I think this is a good game to challenge the offensive line to say, look, you guys were flat out embarrassed against Missouri. Go get it. Go get after Auburn, a team that we hate. This is a big rivalry game for many reasons. So, get back to basics, the fundamentals. And at the end of the day, though, and I'll conclude with this, is that, this run game doesn't need to be spectacular. Like I mentioned, that the 2017 rushing attack with Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel, it doesn't need to be that. It really needs to be complementary to the entire Todd Monken scheme and really just offer the right kind of balance. And balanced is not 50-50 anymore. It's more so you just want to make sure that the defense does not have a read on what you're going to run. And then that gives the offense, and particularly Stetson Bennett, all the power to make sure everything's in a line, and for him to be able to decide, okay, the defense is lined up like this, we're going to do this, and make sure he has all the advantages at play. And that's the type of, if that makes any, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That's the balance that Georgia needs to achieve. And that's where the run game comes into play, because Monken, at the end of the day, his preference, and I don't disagree, especially in today's modern era of college football, he wants to hit explosive plays and to get up on teams and not let up on the gas pedal. And the way you do that is you have a quarterback, you got receivers, you spread teams out, you run with tempo, and you set up certain plays, and then you hit them with a deep shot. The run game is very much, and I think when it comes to the running back rotations, you're seeing that this is definitely a more complementary aspect. It's not the focal point. But when you can't run the ball at any kind of consistent clip, and you're only able to get 66 rushing yards through 3 quarters against a team like Missouri, that's a problem, and that is a concern going into we're almost at the halfway point of the season, and that is a concern moving forward that hopefully Georgia, for Georgia's sake, they are able to address. It is not doom and gloom, I swear, but when you're coming out of a game like that, you do have to hope, think, wonder if this team can address these matters accordingly, move forward, and change, adjust, and learn from these mistakes and these games. And so with that, I will close. First, before I go, I just want to point out the 7-6 Amen Corner here. It's part of their golf line, obviously in the Masters colors. I had to pick one up. I just want to shout them out, 7-6 Apparel. So if you go to their website, go look up all the cool stuff. They got a lot of cool Georgia stuff, a lot of cool Brave stuff. If you're a fan of other teams, people who are fans of other teams, I should say. They got some other college teams that they do gear for, and they have an NIL collection at that when it comes to Georgia, so you can get some shirts with specific Georgia players on them. Now, just wanted to shout them out because they got some really cool stuff, and this shirt is so comfortable, I have to say. So, all right. Until tomorrow, I will see you again. Hope everybody has a great day, and you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I can't thank you enough for being as fantastic you are. I'm Jason Butt with UGAsports.com. Y'all take care.